Okay, so I definitely debated even coming on and addressing any of the topic that I have seen some people discussing that has to do with not only me being pregnant, but my pregnancy announcement. So, first of all, because I've been kicked off Instagram so many times, I'm just gonna kind of let anybody who doesn't know who I am and what I do kind of have a little intro. So, my name is Lady Anaconda. I am the elite QOS. QOS stands for Queen of Spades. It is definitely a term that already has a lot of controversy surrounding it. One of the main reasons being that it's mostly been used by white wives in cuckolding couples. So, a white wife, typically with a white male partner who identifies as a cuckold, and she either cheats on him or she has relations with other men with his knowledge. I do not date white males. um, I have had cuckolds that I'm not like intimate with since college, so over 10 years now. And in that capacity, they wanted to hear about my lifestyle. They wanted to know stories. They wanted to ask questions. They wanted to take me out for dates and then drive me to my dick appointments. Um, I had one in particular that he went to a high school with a lot of sexy black guys, and I fucked all his friends and not him. And I would tell him all the time in front of lots of people that we knew that he wasn't good, didn't measure up to what I wanted, what I needed, and that I was never going to sleep with him. But he was, at the time, I didn't like have terminology for it, but now I know he had a fetish and he had a kink for being humiliated, being, denied, being compared to men that I did want to have sex with. And in that regard, I was his cuckoldress because I was denying him sex and telling him all about the better sex that I was having with other men, specifically black men. Because once I went to college and I realized that I adored black men, I have been black men only ever since. So that's 10 plus years. And the term cuckoldress has definitely mostly been used, even though it exists in a fetish space, it exists in a BDSM way. A dominant woman may cuckold her submissives, or if they identify as slaves. It's mostly used by white hot wives, right? And I am not a hot wife. I have a black king who is my fiance and my business partner and the love of my life. And he's my best friend, and we do everything together. We run the company, House of Anaconda, the modeling agency that I run, and we do a lot of social media marketing and work a lot with other FinDoms, specifically in a lot of other QOS, Black Doms, and we do a lot of promotion for Black-owned businesses. So I make content. We do scenes together. I do scenes with other content creators. So that's my lifestyle, is that I like to say I'm a black-owned vixen, because my black king and I do not cuckold my black king. He plays both with me. We go play together in more of like a swinger kind of way. And he also has, side chicks that he goes and sees, without me. And I think that's super hot because he's dominant. He's dominant to me. I'm submissive only to him. I'm dominant to my submissives, which are primarily white guys, but not exclusively. You can be of, kind of any background and have potential to serve me, as long as you serve me the way I want to be obeyed and spoiled and served. So, cuckolding for me, even though it's got a typical connotation, for me, it's only existing in like much more of a domination way in my lifestyle. I might have cucks that I have a dynamic with in real life, like I have sissy maids, for instance, that come and clean my house and pay to clean my house. And I might, either tease them or torment them with my Black King while they're cleaning or after they clean. I've definitely done sessions with cucky guys that want to watch me with my Black King or other Black Kings or multiple Black Kings or whatever, and, be dominated, humiliated, teased in some capacity. So I already, people have a hard time putting me in a box. They don't really know what to make of me. They don't really understand what I do because I'm not a white hot wife. I don't have a white husband that I am like catering to his kinks, catering to what he's into. I have since the beginning taken kind of a controversial position within the kink community because I challenge a lot of these white safe spaces where these cucks feel like their feelings, what they want, are top priority, right? I've been educating and dominating these white boys to understand you're not going to just fetishize Black bodies and try and use Black men as dildos for your wife. You need to acknowledge how much you are obsessed with these Black men, how much you say that you worship these Black men, how much you acknowledge that they can do something for your wife that you cannot do. Like, there needs to be more respect. There needs to be more obedience and submission to the Black kings themselves. And I don't think enough people realize, because I come off very mean, apparently. This is, again, things that I hear that other people say about me. So for women that are maybe in the lifestyle in some way, the cuckoldress lifestyle, the hot wife lifestyle, they do a lot of teasing, but they don't necessarily do as much degrading like I do. I enjoy being degrading, but it's consensual. That's the thing about BDSM, right? It's all consensual. So as much as I would like to and used to, kind of call out white guys just like randomly in public, non-consensually, especially when I was a bartender, I don't do that anymore. Like, that's not how I run my business. My business is all consensual interactions. If you follow me on Twitter, which you should, at Lady Anaconda HOA, you will see that for the most part, I stay in my lane. I respect that there is a lot of different lifestyles out there. There's a lot of fetish lifestyles and kinky, ways that people like to live, whether they're content creators or not. And some of them, I think they're great, they're cool, maybe they're not for me. There's some I even disagree with, but I stay in my lane. If people come into my space, I don't hold back. I let them know how I feel. I've got no problem telling a white guy that he's leading with his entitlement or that he's being insecure and trying to control a situation or top from the bottom because he feels privileged. And I definitely love to talk to women and help them understand the power that they have, not only in their own life, let's say as a single woman, you should do what you want, but also if they are in some type of cuckold dynamic, to own that it should be about their pleasure, what they want to do, how they want to live. And that, a lot of times, even if you have a husband who is, this white guy, totally privileged, successful in business, seems very alpha, at work or, in life in general, a lot of these men, especially because of the pressure that puts on them, they have a desire to be submissive, especially in the bedroom. They have a desire to be, dominated or to serve a woman in some capacity. So I do actually talk to a lot of couples, talk to a lot of women. I love that. I love being able to not only help women find their power and find, a connection to their sexuality that maybe this wannabe Puritan society has tried to shame them away from. But, if you go on my Twitter, maybe it seems a little extreme. And that's because, again, my opinion of Black supremacy, because that's what I believe in, seems a little extreme to people. And there's a lot of focus in the cuckolding lifestyle on just catering to the feelings of these cuckold guys who want to know that they're still important, that their feelings still matter, that, they have a place and all of this, which that's great and everything. But again, you get to go back to just being a privileged white guy outside the bedroom. This Black king that you just spent all this time and energy, obsessing over, hyping up, like focusing on, wanting around to bring this fantasy to life of, being with your wife or your girlfriend or your mistress, your dominant, there needs to be, and that's one of the reasons why financial domination is a big part of what I do. There needs to be respect and service, because otherwise you're not showing the appreciation to this Black king. And some Black kings in this lifestyle like to be called bulls. I personally don't use that term myself. I call my king Black king. I call him sir, or I call him master. And I just, this is my perspective. This is how I work. This is how I educate my subs. Okay. Like, we read books together. Like, I mean, a lot of people know about, like, White Fragility was a book that was very popular for me. It's still popular. But that's a main one that I recommend to my subs when they approach me, and, maybe they have some level of white guilt. Maybe they have some level of, I have all these feelings. I'm addicted to interracial porn, or I'm addicted to the idea of feeling inferior, or, what do I do with these feelings? Where do I put this? And I think there's people that think that because I address that and I provide a safe space for those conversations, that I've created that. And that's, as much as I'd like to take credit for that, I can't take credit for that. That exists. It's been out in the world for a very long time. And if you do your research and you see a lot of the issues that we have, in our history and in society today, there is a lot of that inferiority complex. There's a lot of that insecurity. I'm not just talking about, the misogyny of these males trying to control women and being intimidated by their sexuality, being intimidated by their sexual freedom or whatever liberation they're experiencing, but also the competition of, I can't measure up to this guy, or I, am stressed out about how I can't do what this guy can do. And, SPH, that's only one small piece of what we're talking about here. Again, a lot of guys, if they have like a tiny little, shrimpy dick, they like to be humiliated. They fetishize, or they sexualize rather, their tiny little dicklet, and all of the inability to perform that comes along with that. So they found a space to direct that energy, instead of just, say, going and becoming some radicalized, incel, angry, resent women, racist, like, angry person, right? Kink education can really help people to deal with feelings that they have, not just deal with trauma that they have, but just deal with, questions, frustrations, feelings that they have that they don't really know where to put them. So I try to offer a space for this. I try to offer a space for women to have, conversations that may seem controversial. The fact that, their husband wants them to dominate them with a Black king, and, how do I go about that? How do I try it and see if it's something that I'm comfortable with? How do I try it and make sure that I'm not just using Black men? I'm not just sexualizing, Black bodies, but rather having an actual dynamic with a Black master, a Black dominant, Black king, Black bull, again, however the Black man himself chooses to identify in his lifestyle, helping these women to come to terms with the fact that their husband, their white cucky husband, has these feelings, wants this lifestyle, and how they can take control and take ownership of the lifestyle, because you shouldn't just be indulging somebody else's kinks. Like, you should be, anything that you're engaging in should be for you, right? So I just want to kind of flesh that out, because I want to premise what I'm going to talk about with, I know that I'm controversial. I know already that I approach things in a way that's different, that I want to have conversations that make people uncomfortable, and that a lot of people want to be left alone in their fetish and their fantasy life, and they don't want to deal with the accountability or the responsibility of how it connects to the real world, how it connects to the realities of racism, the realities of privilege, the realities of, white entitlement, and how there's, it's changing now. I think we can all agree, but like, how there's so much emphasis on white safe spaces online because of this, racist entitlement, where Black men and women don't feel seen, don't feel heard, don't feel supported. don't feel protected. And I just think that acknowledging that, addressing that, and trying to support these Black men and women, these Black kings and queens, is a lot more important than worrying about offending insecure white guys or tiptoeing around certain issues because, you know, how these white guys might feel if I call out things. Because again, once again, I'm not forcing anything down someone's throat like a dildo. I am literally offering a consensual, safe space to discuss these things and to check the egos. You know, some of these guys like just need their egos checked. Some of them want their egos checked. Some of them want to learn from me. Some of them want to be dominated in a specific way that seems really extreme to other people. Some of them want to have conversations that seem really extreme to other people. I can say that one of the reasons I call myself the elite QOS and I have the elite QOS movement is because within the House of Anaconda, there's a lot of QOS who identify as I do as being somebody who exclusively not just has sex with Black men, but exclusively dates Black men. There's various women in the House of Anaconda that identify as QOS who are married to Black men, have children with Black men. This is, so we're not, you know, this standard, like people try to call me a hot wife and I love to correct them and say, I'm a Black owned vixen. Like I'm a vixen, my king is a stag in those fetish terms of like, we both have sex with other people. We play together and we play separately. And, you know, there's not this, I don't have a husband at home that I'm keeping in chastity. I have owned cuck submissives that I am a key holder for, that I control their orgasms. You know, I play with them is, you know, play things in terms of like dominate them, tease them, deny them, give them tasks. And sometimes those tasks are sexual in nature, and sometimes they are read a chapter of this book and then I'm going to ask you questions, and if you answer them correctly and I can tell that you read it, you might earn some type of either release or privilege or video or whatever. So these are the interactions that I have with my subs. I even have subs that want to have more of a real life, you know, purpose and interaction with being useful to Black superiors. Like I had a guy who was working at a college for a while and he did a cucky Uber service where he provided free, safe rides around campus for Black students only. And which was wonderful because that kind of just, you know, discrimination doesn't normally exist where, you know, he will not give rides to anybody but Black kings and queens. And I would make him, you know, send me screenshots of the messages that he would get because I had him put flyers up around the campus. And obviously I told him to put my information on it so that they could contact me if for any reason they wanted to confirm that this isn't just some weirdo, you know, but like that somebody knew he was doing it and that he was, you know, accountable to do it correctly and behave and this and that. And, you know, some people just used him for free and got their rides. Some of them enjoyed humiliating him and dominating him. And, you know, in that regard, he got to have that kind of kinky interaction and it was consensual because he didn't initiate it. They would initiate it. So anything's possible, you know, in a Dom sub dynamic. You have a lot of responsibility as a dominant, you know, to lead and use somebody's energy in a productive way. You know, I do love when I see Doms, just in general, I will say, online that are really about not just helping their subs get control of like their finances, you know, so that they can better serve their Dom, you know, being good with their money so that they're, you know, it's like a long-term investment to have this sub, but to make them healthier, to make sure that they are paying attention to their mental health too. These are important things. So as mean as I may seem, I take this very seriously. I have my kinks. I have what's important to me. Again, I lose my accounts a lot, and I'm sure it's because I challenge, you know, white supremacy rhetoric. I challenge white safe spaces. I've even lost like my activism accounts, which is the branch of activism for House of Anaconda is called Anaconda Fights. And I've lost it on Twitter. It's still active on Instagram. I just, you know, I don't know why it gets taken down, but, you know, I mostly just use it to share political and, you know, social awareness and Black cause awareness posts and links and education. And I also show the donations and the tributes that are sent on my behalf to, either Black-owned businesses, or for a very long time, I had subs sending a lot of money to Black Lives Matter. Mostly now I focus on sending to the ACLU, or sending to Black men and women directly in some capacity, or like I said, like buying stuff from Black-owned businesses, or showing me receipts of going to a Black-owned business in their town, like a local business or something. And, I do giveaways, content, and my sites, access to my private sites all the time for subs that, support the Black community, because as an elite QOS, again, I'm aligning myself with serving and supporting Black men and women and the Black community. And I try to do it outside of kink too, but that's the world that I'm in. That's the world that I like to speak up in, and that's the world that I think there's not a lot, there's only just now becoming women, particularly white women, trying to be better allies in the kink community to speak up and speak out, because racism is very real still, and there is a lot of discrimination against Black Doms and Black content creators. And I don't know obviously I understand the basics of, racism. I'm not saying I don't understand that. What I'm saying is I definitely think that there's an element of, and we use the term proxy cucks, who try to serve Black superiors like through a white Dom, So like I say all the time, like all Black queens and Black kings deserve to have, their own QOS subs to kind of like use these proxy cucks, right? Because I think a lot of these proxy cucks think that they'll be able to be more comfortable with a white Dom because they think that they'll be able to manipulate them, like, oh, like, we're on the same side, or something stupid and racist like that. Or they think that they can top from the bottom, like I said, manipulate the white Dom. And if she's a true QOS, like, no, she's going to destroy you. And like, I love to groom them. I groom them. I have subs that I've groomed up and, sent out to be like, no, if you're going to talk about Black supremacy, you're going to actually go serve Black superiors. And, again, so a lot of people have issues with how I do things, but I just think I'm controversial in nature, maybe because I am different, and that hasn't been a lot of women like me doing things the way that I do it, not being afraid to bring a certain level of social awareness, or conversation about politics, or conversation about education into kind of a kink sphere. But that's always how I've been. I'm a little bit of everything, and I always will be. So, I'm not a full-time professional porn star. I have no interest in being, because when you're on a set, and I've talked to many successful porn stars, professional porn stars about this, when you're on a set for a company, you're hired. You don't get a huge say in the script, what you do, who you're working with, how the scene's gonna go. There's even been, I remember there was a whole issue with his name's Mo the Monster Johnson, and he actually had to start an entire legal battle because he said, I am not comfortable with you using the N-word to refer to me in this scene. And the producer or the director or both was said to the female talent in the scene, just do it anyway. And I mean, there's so many issues with that on so many levels, of course. But, and not that anybody would even try to hire me and think that I would do that, because I don't use that word, because it's not respectful and I have no right to use that word. But these are the issues that you come into when you're being hired for something. They expect you to just shut up and act, shut up and fuck, shut up and whatever, right? So I've never been interested in pursuing porn in this professional way, because I wouldn't be able to be myself. I wouldn't be able to say the things I want to say. I wouldn't be able to talk about really worshiping Black kings and queens, really dominating, white betas and talking about their inferiority complex. I don't see that, happening, because they're more worried about me just being a BBC slut, right? That's all they really care about. So we'll see. One day maybe I'll, break the internet with some really wild scene that really depicts me, in my Lady Anaconda glory. But right now, I am a content producer that makes my own content with my own company, and I do it how I want to do it. I collab with who I want to collab with, and I'm able to make the content that I want to make. And that's part of what I do. I do a lot of one-on-one financial domination with both pay-to-play subs that may not be collared or owned, but also subs that have served me long term. Maybe I'm their key holder, or we just have some type of dynamic where they pay me something regular to have the privilege of interacting with me, interacting with my king, whether virtually or in person. So I'm definitely, female dominant in that regard. That's a big part of my life. And a lot of it is because one of the reasons I said before that, I think a lot of Black men and women should, in the kink world, should have a QOS ally, a QOS sub even that serves them, is because that is a very easy way, not easy, I shouldn't say easy, but that's a very direct way to be able to get reparations sent right to you. Because there are a lot of subby guys, whether, they identify as cucks or sissies, sissy cucks, betas, etc., who get off on paying either Black-owned women like myself or directly paying superior Black women or superior Black men, or an alpha couple in some capacity, whether it's a Black woman and a Black man, or a Black man and his QOS wifey, whatever. So it's a huge world, and that's one of the reasons why I work with certain Black content creators that are developing the BNWO network, because it's not just about BBC, it's not just about sex, it's about literally defunding white supremacy. It's literally using these kinks and these fetish spaces to the benefit of Black people, and getting that money and getting that that funding sent directly to them, instead of white doms just being able to put on a BBC dildo and line their own pockets. So these are, I blur the lines a lot because there's, a huge lifestyle community for cuckolding and even like being a hot wife that doesn't, like I said, dabble as much in maybe, female domination or even financial domination. And, I think about it kind of how there was, the explosion that was able to come about because of the internet, Instagram, and TikTok, where, say, for instance, people that do cosplay, all of a sudden you're able to have all these super hot girls get, and not just super hot girls, but like people in general that like amass a big following, and they do cosplay, and they're getting paid to do the cosplay. Maybe they're getting some type of sponsorship, or maybe they're some type of sex worker and they're making money off of their audience and able to fund doing these cosplays. Maybe they do the cosplays really sexy or whatever, but it's always seems like there's a disconnect between people that end up doing something for money and people that just do it for the love of it or the fun of it, or the creative expression of it, right? Like they have some job and they're not a sex worker, and or they're not an online personality per se, but they love to do this. They love to, dress up or take these photos or whatever, but they don't get paid for it. They make no money off of it. And sometimes there's that issue where the people that just do it for the love of it have an issue with the people that profit off of it. And that is very much also an issue in the kink community, where, you have sites like FetLife where you will get literally kicked off if you say anything about a paid meet or tribute or anything like that. And obviously I'm not stupid. I know a lot of that has to do with the fact that we won't decriminalize sex work. So it's an issue of prostitution. It's they try to masquerade it, when Fossa Sesta came about, they were trying to masquerade it as if it was to try and clamp down on trafficking. But the reality is we just won't decriminalize sex work so that we can see the difference between consensual sex work, whether it's, again, virtual or in person, prostitution or camming or femdom sessions or whatever, the difference between that and literally like trafficking and, forced sex work, people that have been either kidnapped or, manipulated into situations like the whole Andrew Tate thing. Like, he using the lover boy method to manipulate women, to be able to control women, to put them in a situation where he controls them, where he makes them cam. Who knows how much he's actually paying them? Probably not enough that they can go anywhere. So these are different things. What I do online, I may seem a little bit mean, but it's all consensual, and I'm not holding anybody against their will. So, and that also brings me into what I said before, that there's topics I don't agree with, but I can't erase them from the earth. Like, I don't really like home wrecking. If you go on, again, you go explore sex work Twitter, I see a lot of financially dominating women, who have their subs that like to be financially dominated, who want their finances controlled, who want to be drained, rinsed. There's a very popular kink of home wrecking. And sometimes it's pure fantasy based, but if there's been articles that have come out about women that have gotten themselves into situations with guys who, 1 minute they think they're having a consensual, kinky interaction with some guy, and they're, draining his bank account, or they're blackmailing him, oh, here, I'm going to send you my license, force me to pay. And then guess what? Post-nut clarity comes about, and now he's coming back for all that money, right? So I don't like to do that. I don't like to involve myself in that. And I don't even like to involve myself in the home wrecking fantasy, because that is a woman who has not consented to being sexualized, who has not consented to being degraded, who has not consented to the conversation or the interaction that you and that man are having, right? So that's my own personality. That's my own issue, because my personality is that I want to talk to her. Like, is she real? Do you even have a wife? Like, let's talk to her. Let's see how we can improve you want to be cuckolded? Well, we're going to need to talk to her, or this is how you should approach her. So, I'll have guys be like, oh, talk about how you want to dominate my wife and how you would take over the family and how you would, make her your bitch and this and that. And I'm like, no, you're just going to be both our bitches. Like, you're just going to be a bitch to both of us. And I'm going to make sure that she has full control over your earning and you spoiling her. And she's going out and having sex and having fun and having dates with men that actually incite passion in her life. Like, I twist it around and make it like, no, we're not going to have a woman bashing session. That's not me. That's not my personality. I'm pretty authentic in how I interact with subs and how I like to dominate. It has a lot to do with who I am and my personality. I know again, I'm not knocking it, but I know there's a lot of women that it's all pure fantasy, right? They'll do girlfriend experience as quickly as they'll do, a dominating kind of fantasy. They'll do home wrecking. Your wife is ugly, your wife is stupid, your wife is nothing compared to me. I don't like to do that. Why should I validate this guy trying to talk to one woman while tearing down another woman, especially a woman that he supposedly loves and supports, and especially sometimes it's the mother of his children. Okay. So I'm not into that. I don't like the home wrecking thing, but again, there's nothing I can do to stop it. If somebody asks me or somebody tries to pay me for that interaction, I can say no. I can acknowledge, no, that's not my thing, or I'm not going to talk about it this way, but I'll talk about it this way. I have that choice. Any woman online, any sex worker online, male, female, trans, it doesn't matter how you identify, you have the choice. And, it's hard sometimes. Like, I understand for especially women who are just starting out, for instance, where they're desperate to make a sale that day, or they're desperate to make some money. They're trying to navigate the waters. That's why I'm saying I'm not judging anybody. I understand that sometimes you have to try something out, or be like, I don't like how that makes me feel, or actually, I'm not going to lean on that. I'm going to go, make clips about this, or, talk about this. But people that just lean really heavy into the home wrecking, I don't personally like it. I don't personally do it. I don't personally agree with it, but I also don't jump on people's pages and say, hey, you shouldn't do this, because I don't think I'm the kink police, and I don't kink shame. I just have what I like, what I don't like. And I think it's interesting when people act like the line that's in their head about something. So for me, I don't do the home wrecking. That's a line in my head that I don't really cross, but I don't act like that's everybody's line, or that line exists out in the world. And so one of the things I wanted to touch on is, if you do follow me on Twitter, or actually, I'm not going to give her clout by saying her name. There's somebody on Instagram who posted the post that I made on Twitter on Instagram. And if you hashtag Lady Anaconda, you'll see it. But she is trying to put words in my mouth and say what I did versus commenting on, I wonder if this is what she meant. So I made an announcement on Twitter about being pregnant. And now, if you've followed me for any length of time, you know that first of all, I live with, am engaged to, and love a Black man, my Black king, Daddy Rock. I am pregnant with his baby. This child was born out of love. This child was not born out of fetish. I made an announcement wearing a sweatshirt that says Black bread on it. Now, the problematic and controversial element of this is a couple things, one of which I know that if you ever see a lot of the sissy made and cuck made and, just generally like white male sub made propaganda and content on Twitter, you'll see that they over sexualize and over fetishize women pregnant with Black babies, right? Okay. So I understand it's already kind of a controversial thing, but this is not my fetish. This is my real life, right? Like I'm in an actual relationship with a Black king that I love. And I have fans that never even have a sexual or kinky interaction with me. They follow me because they like that I do activism. They follow me because they like that I support and model for Black owned businesses. Like I have a variety of fans in my fan base. So I waited until I'm about like 6 months pregnant now. And I waited to announce it, right? Because I wanted to keep it to myself for a while because I'm selfish sometimes. And that was fun for me. But I wanted people to know I wasn't going to hide it. It's a real development in my life. The same way I'd be like, oh, I'm going to go visit my family. I'm hanging out with my mom today, or I'm walking my dog. Like it's a part of my life. And it's a very important part of my life. And the thing is that this girl, this cuckoldress, who regards herself as a very, I thought, a very sex positive, female positive, non-slut shaming person. So she must have some issues that I can't help her work through. They're her own issues. Somebody used the term sister wound to me. So, I don't know what she's going through, but she tried to demonize and condemn me for this pregnancy announcement, saying that I was sexualizing my child. Now, it's confusing to me, and I'll pose the question. It's confusing to me because I'm pretty sure if I'm saying Black bread, I'm referring to myself. I am Black bread. My child is still being baked. She's not even an individual yet. And I'm talking about myself when I say I am Black bread. So I'm talking about being a pregnant woman and how excited and happy and proud I am to be pregnant with my Black King's baby. So I guess she had a real problem with my sweatshirt. And of course, if I was taking photos with my baby girl, like in my arms or sitting next to me or whatever, and like putting her out there on the internet, I can see people having a huge issue with that. I would have a huge issue with that. And I don't intend on sharing any photos like that because the world is full of creeps. And there's even guys that made some weird comments on my thread in general, trying to talk directly about my child rather than talk about me and, being a pregnant woman. And I just blocked them because if they're disrespectful or if they can't just say congratulations or so happy for you, their input and their opinion is completely not needed and has no purpose and has no, place in my world. So I just, am curious. I want people to keep that in mind, first of all, that I am still an individual. I am a woman. I am allowed to be sexual still. I am always going to be allowed to be sexual. I'm pregnant, but I'm having sex with my Black king. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm still my own person. And I am not getting pregnant to sell content. If you look at my page, I don't even have any pregnancy content. Not that I think there's anything wrong with that, but you can't try and say that I'm anything but a real person announcing to my fans I'm pregnant and I'm excited. And the question I want to pose is, what is the separation? What is the difference between talking about being pregnant, because you're an individual and you are pregnant, or being a MILF which we all know what MILF stands for, right? Mother I'd like to fuck. So I'm not really sure I understand why being a MILF is so normalized and accepted, and that in a way you are sexualizing motherhood when you're saying that. I see hot wives. I'm not a hot wife, but I see a lot of hot wives, and they'll say like good mommy by day and naughty by night or something like that. Is she talking about her children explicitly, specifically? No, she's talking about herself. I am a mom. I've had children. I have this life and that life, and ooh, it's so sexy. I don't think that women should lose their identity of being a sexually liberated, comfortable, passionate, dominant, or submissive, or kinky woman because they, transition to another part of their life where they're now also a mother. Like that sounds like a misogynistic kind of issue to me, and a misogynistic kind of perspective, to be like you lose some autonomy over yourself and how you express yourself and how you present yourself if you transition into being a mother and motherhood. So I just want to go on record that, if me saying baby anaconda coming 2023 to announce that I'm pregnant and wearing a sweatshirt that's saying black bread offended anybody, I just want you to sit with the question of, is it because I'm a sex worker? Is it because you don't know how to separate me from sexualizing any and everything I say and do? Is it because me being pregnant like confuses you? Like, are sex workers in general like not allowed to be excited and proud and living in their pregnancy and living in this special moment and wanting to share it with people? Like, I just want to go on record and say that my purpose was to let my fans know I'm pregnant, to let them know I'm excited, and to also, showcase a Black-owned business that made me a special sweatshirt. And I am in fact black bread. I am black bread. My child is not black bread. I am black bread. Lady Anaconda is. And I have no intention of using my child in a sexual capacity. So I just want to make sure everybody understands where I'm coming from. I don't like to feel like I have to explain myself, and it's why I kind of sat on it for a few days. But when I talk to good friends of mine who agree with me and know where I'm coming from, but can also respect me enough to say, this might be where somebody else is coming from, somebody who doesn't know you, or, somebody who twists what you said or what you did to look like something else, how they might feel, this is another perspective. This is another way of looking at it. But again, if I'm allowed to be a MILF, I'm allowed to be pregnant. I'm allowed to exist. I'm allowed to be myself. And I'm always going to be, like I said, authentically Lady Anaconda. I'm going to be a little bit of everything. I'm going to be a sex worker. I'm going to be an activist. I'm going to be a cuckoldress. I'm going to be a QOS. I'm going to be, in a swinger couple. I'm going to be a vixen. I'm going to be a mother now. And I'm so proud. I'm going to be able to continue to have, remember, just like everybody else, I have a whole other life offline. I have a whole existence offline. And despite the fact that I live my life very authentically, I will have the same conversation, no holds bar, talking about, racist realities and the accountability that white people have to educate each other about how easily we can be blind to the repercussions of our actions and our privilege and the entitlement that we might have as a white man or white woman in society. I'm happy to have those conversations online or offline. I'm not a different person, but I'm just like anybody else going to have private interactions offline that have nothing to do with me making content, nothing to do with me promoting my content, nothing to do with who I have sexual relationships with or kinky conversations with. And I have a lot of fans that are just supportive of me and living my life. So I wanted to share that. So I hope that everybody can understand where I'm coming from and understand that, I am not playing a part. I actually am Lady Anaconda and I actually am black bread. So, that is me being proud of that and being real about that and sharing it with, the internet in some small way. So, I just wanted to kind of get on here and cover a lot of these topics. And, I had a few people ask some questions. So, I think I covered most of those. People are always curious about how I got into this lifestyle and where it started. And, coming from a very white upbringing, very white high school experience, and then going to college and being around not just, all of a sudden being around black men and women, but being around people from all over the world, because I went to a really big university and there's people from all over the country there, all over the world there. So even the black men and women that I met were all very different, even from each other. I dated a Nigerian prince for a while, and that was really exciting. And I could have been a chiefess in Nigeria had that worked out. But he's still doing very well. He's an amazing man, and I'm glad to have conversations with him, because I have now these relationships with different people I've met over the course of my life, and they're, mentors to me, and they all love and appreciate what I do. And everybody that I've talked to knows who I am, is not surprised at literally anything I say or do. And, they know that I exist a little more on the extreme side of the spectrum, but that I am ready to back it up anytime, anywhere. And, if you just want to learn more about it, I'm always available. Like I said, you don't have to even tribute me directly, although you're going to get a lot more of my time and attention if you do. But you can show me a receipt of sending a donation or making a purchase from a Black-owned business. And you can, speak to me one-on-one, whether here on Instagram. It's kind of hard, the messages, I've got a lot just sitting. But, Twitter, if you just kind of like at me on Twitter and, tell me that you sent a tribute and show like the receipt, then, I'll message you. It's really easy. You just send us, you can blur out whatever, item number, order number, whatever, your name. I don't need all that, but just show evidence of either, say, subscribing to multiple Black content creators pages, sending a tribute or a donation to ACLU, which you can actually do directly at ladyanacondahoa.com. I have a link right there, nice and easy, donate to the ACLU. And I also have links to various Black-owned businesses, some of which I directly work with and model for and promote, and some that, I just think deserve some shine and some attention to help direct traffic there. Because I think if you're going to call yourself a queen of spades, it shouldn't just be, oh, I'm a white woman who likes having sex with Black men while my husband watches in the corner. It's great. That's your lifestyle. Again, I'm not knocking it. Have a great time. But I just would rather people be a little more conscientious of everything at play in those dynamics, and that you should be trying to pay it forward to the Black kings and queens. What your wife might want to go down on Black queens. Like, I'm not saying that it's only exclusively like Black men that get pulled into these cuckolding dynamics, but the point being that you really should show some love and so show some respect and show some appreciation, because it doesn't really make sense to have these cucks online talking only to white women about Black supremacy. That doesn't make sense. So we need more women like myself and the other elite QOS of HOA that actually support Black content creators and putting money toward, Black empowerment, and not just white girls lining their pockets. But, again, I have a Black king. When you have a Black king, he's involved. I have cucks send directly to him all the time. Proxy cucks, like, they want to talk to me. Okay, well, you can send to him. It's really simple. It's really easy. More women could do it. And I think I am proud that, you know, I feel like a lot of the women that I talk to are following my lead, are realizing that they can do that, you know, they have that power to, you know, if you want to talk to me, go buy from here, or go pay this Black king, or go pay this Black queen, or go subscribe to their page, or, you know, we have that power. So that's what it means to be an elite QoS to me. I live my lifestyle authentically, online and offline, and I will continue to do so. And I've been really blessed to have a lot of amazing experiences with some really legendary content creators, you know, and people like Prince Yashua, Shane Diesel. They've had my back so incredibly. I just can't even say enough amazing things about how much they just validate, you know, what I'm trying to do, and my brand. And, you know, they're not scared off by my extreme beliefs because they've met me in person, and they've acknowledged, you know, that they can tell this is who I really am. And the video, actually, if you haven't seen it yet, the video I did with Prince Yashua and Princess Disney, who's another HOA QoS who has a Black king as her partner. You know, she's got little white subs like I do, but she's not a hot wife. She's a vixen. And my owned sub, Cucky Bob, we did a scene together in Vegas with Prince Yashua, and it's like one of his top selling videos, which I'm so incredibly proud of that, because he is such a legend in the porn community and in his, you know, in his own right, in his own lane. And he just was so sexy and so dominant in this scene, and just right at home with, you know, humiliating and cuckolding and, you know, having this such a fun, kinky time. And, you know, to be able to bring that opportunity to somebody who already is just such a powerhouse in the industry was just something I'm very proud of. And I want to be able to do more things like that in the future, more projects like that with Black kings and queens. You know, I'm starting to work very closely with Saint Sarah, who her porn name, she goes by Go Fuck Me, and she's a huge deal. She's amazing, and she's just so insightful and so intelligent, and she's really working hard with some other Black queens and some Black kings to develop a true BNWO network that goes beyond just, you know, porn content and fetish content, but actually like builds a network of white male submissives and, you know, cuckolds, sissy cucks, etc., who genuinely want to serve Black empowerment, who genuinely want to learn from, be dominated by, and, you know, serve Black empowerment. And, you know, that's one of the things that I'm passionate about, and one of the things that being involved in the kink community has led me to. So I really hope that that message continues to spread, and it's seen for what it is, and not just seen as Lady Anaconda is really mean to white boys and Lady Anaconda hates all white boys. Because, you know, when I'm tearing down the white male perspective, or, you know, white feelings, I'm talking about, like I said earlier, you know, these angry, racist, misogynistic, just white males that are just nasty, or like have, you know, a lot of power. You know, the politicians and the lobbyists and the corporate owners that just are really trying to, you know, divide and conquer, push racist agendas. You know, I mean, obviously the world is different now. You really can come online and empower yourself and make your own money, you know, and everything. And the world is definitely going into the direction of, you know, self-empowerment for a lot of people, but there's a lot of racism still at play. There's a lot of racist politics still at play. And to try and like just hide in your bedroom from it and think that everything exists in a vacuum because this is your fetish, that's ridiculous. And we have to acknowledge it, especially if we're talking about worshiping Black men and women in our bedroom. Like, no, we need to expand that conversation beyond the bedroom. And the BNWO network, I'm pretty sure the website is blacknewworldorder.com. And on Twitter, it's serve BNWO. So make sure, you follow, and you can even sign up at the website to learn more, to serve directly. And I'm actually helping, no spoilers, but I am helping develop a training course with Saint Sarah for the BNWO network. So stay tuned for that, because that's in the works right now. And I promised interviews and a podcast. My Scales podcast is going to be starting the end of the month. I already have some interviews that I've already recorded, and I'm very excited to share that I will be uploading. So those will be available on all the major podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, and there's going to be special video podcasts also on my YouTube channel at Lady Anaconda HOA. And but I'm going to be doing more frequent just audio conversations on the podcast itself. Just, like I said, just audio, but there will be some special videos on my YouTube as well. So make sure you are checking out ladyanacondahoa.com for any updates, any links for new content. It's a very exciting time for me for a lot of reasons, and I'm just so blessed that I've met and made acquaintance with and connections with so many people that really appreciate and value what I do, that I don't run away from controversy, that I am happy to provide a safe space for a lot of controversial conversations and help guys deal with, a lot of the feelings that they have, whether it's guilt or insecurity or anger or frustration or there's this amazing QOS that makes a lot of wild content, Lucy Spades, and she's on Instagram, she's on Twitter. Definitely give her a follow. She's amazing because she's got a lot of the same perspective that I have, where she just knows that there's a huge consensual world for cucks that want a little more of an extreme take. Like this cuckoldist girl that's trying to tear me down. Again, I'm not going to say her name because I'm not going to give her the clout. She is very much about that cuckolding is love, which it is, right? There's a lot of love in these kinky relationships, but not everybody is in one type of lifestyle. There's not just one way to do things. There are a lot of people who want to have consensual, kinky situations where there is a little more humiliation or degrading or, full-on BDSM type interactions of being whipped, beaten, locked in chastity and tormented, forced by, which is very rarely forced. So sissifying and feminizing, emasculating, and, just a general, consensual, degrading, kinky conversation. Like, all of that is natural. All of that is fine. All of that is okay. And when it's consensual, it can be very intimate and very loving. There's plenty of other QOS like that have a white cuck husband who wants to be degraded a little bit more and he finds it hot, tormented a little bit more, finds it hot. Cuckolding is not just these very delicate, very sensitive, very relationships that don't play around with other, more extreme elements. So we just need to really learn to respect each other. We really need to learn as women not to slut shame or kink shame each other. And we really need to stop approaching situations from our own unique perspective and think that applies to everybody in the world. Like, I am well aware that there's always going to be women who want to fuck who they want to fuck. I think that there's a certain level of, we can dive down that whole rabbit hole of how, I just think that there's a lot of women that try to assimilate with the white male perspective to try and benefit from the privileged white male. And maybe she doesn't own herself and be honest with herself and what she really wants. But, that's a conversation for another time. So make sure you follow Lady Anaconda HOA everywhere. And there's going to be a lot more to come. So I hope you all appreciated me just kind of acknowledging a lot of these topics. And Instagram's going to kick me off. So everybody, have a great night. It was wonderful to clarify. It was definitely wonderful to address all of these topics, and I hope that you learned a little more about what makes Lady Anaconda so elite. So definitely check back soon. There's a lot more to come. Bye.